Hi, thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Will Rowley. I'm one of the pre-sales engineers here at Cloud Direct. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about business continuity and what measures you can look at to improve the resilience within your own business. A few things that crop up when we talk about business continuity. A lot of clients come to us because they're looking for a specific solution to address a specific need, whether it's email or their systems backup. But often one of the things they're not really thinking about are some of the overarching business continuity issues. So the cost implications, we're going to look at exactly how a business should go around considering what the budget for business continuity would be, what kind of options are available to businesses from both ends of the spectrum, how you'd go about thinking about a business continuity plan and what sort of issues you should involve in that, and how cloud solutions can play into assisting business continuity planning. And this is the first in a number of webinars that we're going to be looking at in part of business continuity. We've got coming up a backup and disaster recovery webinar, one specifically tailored about communications and how a business can communicate in disaster, and one solely about cloud solutions and which cloud solutions are most easily implementable and can really add resilience to a corporate network. So, just as a bit of an overview of business continuity, four main areas that we tend to think about addressing. One is communications. We're not just talking about your connectivity in your email here. It's more about how a company can continue communicating either internally or externally with its clients, its vendor relations, partners, how you can stay present in a disaster. That leads into the second point here about business image and brand. Most important, obviously, if you've got any kind of requirement to be available 24/7, where customers and clients have an understanding that you're going to be available online. And obviously, the damage that disaster recovery or disasters can affect in that instance is crucial. Third option here, we're talking about operations. Fundamentally, the infrastructure, telephony, the business systems, CRM, all the rest of it that goes into running the business and how we can make those more resilient. And finally, in business continuity, it's fundamentally one of the key things is people. That's whether you've got a loss of people, loss of personnel, whether there are plans of succession in place, what happens to people if a site is evacuated or is unavailable, are they relocated, are they moved to other sites? So there's some of the things that we're going to touch on about business continuity as a whole. So if we start to look at how you can assess the cost of downtime. All businesses will have a downtime cost associated with being offline or not being able to work as business as usual. And the cost of the business is usually diversely proportional to the amount of time it takes to recover. A couple of little jargony buzz terms there, RTO and RPO, the recovery time objective. How long you will allow your business to be down before the cost of the business is exponentially more expensive than any other option to keep it up. And the restore point objective is how far back before the point of disaster you need to recover to. Is it within a few minutes? Is the previous evening okay? And the cost of the business will be directly proportional to the amount of time that you're offline. So if we look at the solution cost, the amount of money that you're going to put aside for business continuity and the time to recovery, you can see there's a bell curve there. So if you've got a time to recovery being very, very short, the cost is going to be very, very high. And businesses that tend to be in this bracket tend to have resilience by default. So they are geographically dispersed. They may have dozens of different sites. They're unlikely to have all of their eggs in one basket, as it were, when it comes to their systems. Their systems are likely to be replicated between the sites. So thinking about banks, think about big public sector bodies like the NHS, where they have multiple sites all running in replication. And they're intrinsically resilient, but the cost associated with this kind of infrastructure, this kind of setup is very, very expensive. Moving down the curve, we've got companies that design resilience into their organization. So they look at implementing resilient processes, redundant business systems. They look at solutions that are critically there to increase resilience in the organization, and they're much more cost effective. So we're thinking about things like failover. Cloud-based services often fall in this bracket. Server failover, email continuity solutions, things that can be bought in to add resilience to a business. They're a lot less costly than the previous example, but they fit in the middle, if you like. And at the bottom end of the curve, the longest time it's going to take you to recover, this could be weeks, is where we're really resting on our business insurance policies, the ability to get new physical equipment in and rebuild from backups or tapes, and where we're really resting on the SLAs that our providers, so whether it be our power and broadband providers, even our business central offices that provide SLAs for availability of their premises. The cost associated with this is obviously far, far less than actually buying in specific business continuity solutions or intrinsically resilient solutions, as we've seen in the other two examples. But obviously the time to recover is much, much greater, and really it's a cost versus risk scenario. And as we saw a moment ago, the cost associated with this length of downtime could be critical in a business. So there's a little bit about time to recover. If we look at the continuity solutions, sort of things that we can vend at Cloud Direct, communications, talking differently from the general communications about internal and external, we're talking things like email continuity here, maintaining telephony through voice over IP infrastructure where we can redirect calls from the cloud, infrastructure itself, whether that's disaster recovery to the cloud. We've got a subsequent webinar which will focus quite heavily on that. Backup, data backup, how data backup can be used as part of a continuity solution. The image and brand aspect here, things like hosting your website. If your website or web server is in a hosting center, the chance or the risk associated with losing that website is going to be far less, and therefore there's an ability then to communicate with customers through the use of your website if you're in a disaster situation. And personnel, again, we don't provide personnel, but we can assist with looking at how you can best utilize mobility solutions associated with some of those other resilient continuity solutions. So whether that's relocating users to home where they can use their voice over IP telephony, whether they're using a hosted desktop so that actually the desktop infrastructure isn't even in the site, and therefore they can get to it wherever they can get an internet connection. We can look at how best to redeploy personnel. A little bit about us. We speak as a company that's gone through an immense amount of accreditation, ISO 27001 and 20000 being the keys there. And really they require us to have our own business continuity planning, and it's taken a long time for us to really work through all the areas of business continuity in our own situation, because we have an SLA to uphold against our customers. So having been through this process ourselves and seen the amount of legwork that's required, we really do know in front to back what needs looking at, what needs to be addressed, and our auditing underpins that. We also operate to government's ITIL principles for service delivery, and we're a government procurement service supplier more on the G-Cloud. And we can only do that because of all the resilience and redundancy we put into our own infrastructure. So one of the things that we're going to be doing after the webinar is sending out a disaster recovery template, and obviously invite to the subsequent webinars. That template intends to walk you through some of the issues that you might see in your business and help root out some of the underlying fragility that may be there, whether it's in your business systems or your processes. We're happy to assist talking you through that, so you've got a better idea of where it is or what it is that might be the weak link if you had a disaster. If you've got any questions now, please do ask us. There are numbers and our email addresses on the screen there. Thank you very much for your time today. We do look forward